In a quiet Montana neighborhood, a child was nearly killed not by a stranger, but by the woman meant to protect the rules. 13-year-old Elara was picking flowers for school when a gunshot shattered everything. What followed was a battle for justice, dignity, and the soul of a community. This isn't just a story about violence, it's about courage, truth, and the scars that bloom into strength. My name is Caleb Morgan. For most of my life, I've worn a badge in Stillwater Ridge, Montana, a small town with big skies, where neighbors wave, kids play in the street, and crime barely stirs. We had our share of petty disputes and noise complaints. Sure, but nothing that prepared us for the day my daughter was shot. Her name is Elara. She's 13, and she was born with spina bifida. She's never walked a day in her life, but she rolls through the world like it owes her nothing. She's curious, soft-spoken, tougher than she looks. That Saturday morning was gentle. We had pancakes for breakfast. Elara rolled her wheelchair out to the garden, collecting marigold blossoms for a school science project on pollination. The sun was high. The birds were singing. Then came the gunshot. I heard her scream first, a sound no father forgets. I ran outside and saw her slumped sideways in her chair, clutching her stomach, her lavender shirt soaked with blood. A woman stood 10 feet away, a pistol still raised and smoking. Dorothy Kellerman, HOA president. She was picking community-maintained flowers. Dorothy screamed. I warned you, I didn't respond. I stripped off my flannel and pressed it to Elara's abdomen, trying to stop the bleeding. My hands shook as I called it in. This is Sheriff Caleb Morgan. My daughter's been shot. Suspect is still on the scene. Dorothy's face turned pale. You never said you were a sheriff, she said, suddenly defensive. You never asked, I replied, drawing my off-duty weapon with one hand while keeping pressure on my daughter's wound with the other. Neighbors began pouring out of their homes. Some froze. Some cried. Dorothy was still ranting about HOA violations, that Elara had received 3 letters for tampering with shared property. But I knew the rules. There were no such violations. She had made them up. When the ambulance arrived, Elara was barely conscious. Am I in trouble for picking them? She whispered. No, baby, I said. You did nothing wrong at the hospital in Billings. Surgeons worked on her for 8 hours. The bullet had torn through her intestine, grazed her liver, and missed her spinal shunt by half an inch. She coded once on the table, but she survived. While she slept in recovery, I began investigating. I pulled every HOA record, every violation, every email. What I found made me sick. Dorothy had filed 7 fabricated complaints against Elara. Her wheelchair ramp, our lowered mailbox. She'd even emailed the HOA board, calling Elara's equipment an eyesore and saying it made the community feel like a rehab center. Dorothy's husband, a local realtor, hired an aggressive attorney who spun a narrative that Dorothy felt threatened. They called it a misunderstanding, a reaction to fear, but security footage from 3 homes painted the truth. Elara, sitting peacefully in our garden, plucking flowers. Dorothy, storming down the street, pistol in hand. No yelling, no warning, just a cold draw and a trigger pull. Less than 10 feet away, in court. Elara insisted on testifying. She wheeled herself to the stand, fragile but composed, and spoke into the microphone with quiet strength. She told me disabled kids shouldn't live here. She said I was ruining the neighborhood. Then she shot me. The room fell into stunned silence. Dorothy's lawyer tried to object. The judge overruled him. The jury took less than 2 hours. Dorothy Kellerman was found guilty on all counts: attempted murder, aggravated assault on a minor, hate crime against a disabled person, and unlawful firearm discharge in a residential zone. The judge delivered the sentence without flinching. You didn't shoot a flower thief, he said. You tried to execute a child, a disabled child, over marigolds. 15 years. No parole. But the story didn't end there. Back in Stillwater Ridge, Elara's classmates organized a fundraiser. They rebuilt the community garden, dedicating a corner to her. A handmade wooden sign read, Elara's Haven. The HOA was restructured entirely. Dorothy banned for life. A new bylaw was passed, Elara's Law, mandating accessibility and zero tolerance for discrimination. Wheelchair ramps were installed. Sensory-friendly signage went up. What was once silent compliance turned into active change. Weeks later, Elara returned to school. The entire student body gave her a standing ovation, not because she survived, but because she came back stronger. 6 months after the shooting, we launched Project Bloom through my office, a partnership between law enforcement and kids with disabilities, mentorships, safety programs, community talks. Elara was our first ambassador. She spoke about what it means to be kind in a world that sometimes forgets to be. On the anniversary of the shooting, I found her sitting alone in the garden she'd helped build, her fingers brushing the petals of a bright sunflower. "Dad," she said, "I think scars are like roots. You don't see all of them, but they help you grow again." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Dorothy thought she was policing flowers. What she tried to destroy was so much more. She never understood who she was dealing with. Not just a sheriff, but the daughter of a fighter, a girl who turned blood into bloom.